Welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying Tanya. We're in the fourth section of Tanya, Igeret Hakodesh, and we are actually on the fourth chapter. The fourth section, the fourth chapter. And as always, I tell you, every chapter is powerful. Every chapter is unique, as this is the Bible of mysticism. So today we're going to be learning a very, I think, a very important concept, and really a intriguing concept. And that is, the Alter Rebbe is going to show us here how we can connect to Hashem on the deepest levels. You know, there's connecting and then there's connecting. Right? You all know, when you do things, you can do it as a matter of a routine, or you can be fired up and you're doing it out of a tremendous deep place from within yourself, and you're into it. So here the Alter Rebbe is going to show us the way to connect Hashem from the deepest levels, and also the Alter Rebbe is going to show us what blocks us from connecting on the deepest levels, and ways to get rid of the blockage. So wow, it's a complete thing. The way to connect Hashem on the deepest levels, things that block that relationship, and how to clean up and get rid of the blockage. Okay, it's a beautiful chapter, chapter 4 in Igeret Hakodesh. So the Alter Rebbe begins with, and he quotes a verse in Isaiah, and the famous verse, Isaiah says that ושביה בצדקה, which means that when and if, God forbid, we are held captive, we will be redeemed, we will go out of exile, b'tzedkah, with what? With charity. So you see that charity has the power to take somebody that's in exile out of exile. It doesn't say ammunition, doesn't say fighting, right? It says one thing, ושביה, you'll come back, b'tzedkah. Put some money in the charity box, sets you free. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about that in depth, but this is a verse from the prophets. So we're dealing with a factual verse from the prophet that makes a statement, a strong statement, a biblical statement, that from the prophet Isaiah, ושביה בצדקה. We're redeemed with charity. Now, what does that mean practically? Which we'll get into shortly. The next quote the Alter brings, he brings a quote from the prophets, from King David, and King David says as follows: Tzedek, also in the word tzedka, לפניו, in front of him, יהלך, will go. Now, the Alter asks him a question. Go, so, in other words, tzedka, you can have charity, and in front of you will go. So to say yelech, go, the proper word should be yelech, yud lamed final chaf. What's the idea of yahalech? Yahalech means, or it sounds like, you're going to make something else go. The charity is going to cause something else to go. What's the something else we're talking about? A little mystery, which obviously the Alter will explain after an introduction. And then the third verse the Alter brings, and this we're going to go into a little in depth right now. The Alter brings the verse where it says, also from King David in Psalms, Lecha Omar Libi Bקשו panini. So to you, my heart says that to beseech my face, which obviously we know face is not, doesn't necessarily mean literally face, but it's referring to as follows: that what God is saying is we should search for what face? The internal face, which basically is referring to the essence of who we are. And as we know, according to Kabbalah, who are we? Our brain or our heart? Huh? Our heart. Even though the godly soul is in our intellect, and that directs us our life, but we don't live in our head. We operate, we create a plan based on intellect, based on what it says in the Talmud, what we comprehend and study academically, but we live in our heart. Real life takes place in the heart. Now, when in your heart, you can be living externally, getting through the day, made it through, right? Or you can be, wow, today was a great day. Today was huge. Today was wonderful, right? Now, when you're excited more, is that external heart or that's your internal heart? You're pulling it out from the depth of your heart, right? So, what King David is saying is that we should look for your internal heart. Your external heart you usually don't have to look for. That's usually there. But your internal heart, what's the expression? Your instinct, your gut feeling, you know, when you do like some soul searching, that's your internal heart. So King David says you should look for your internal heart. And why should you look for your internal heart? Because your internal heart is normally concealed. That's why it's called panini. There's, let's say for example, you have like this. So let's say this is covering this hand. So this becomes chitzon, external, and this becomes the panini, the internal. So what do you access first? The internal or the external? You access the external. So normally you access the external, and King David's saying, guess what? Don't just access the external, go for the depth. Go deeper, go for the panini slave. In other words, like this. And here the Alter Rebbe takes this and takes something so very, very beautiful out of it. And he says as follows. So what is King David giving us? He's giving us like a vision. He's giving us a destination. He's giving us a mission. Go and search your internal heart. And you have to search for it, because normally it's concealed. The natural state of your internal heart is that it's concealed. And here King David says, search for your internal heart. So the Alter says, what does that mean, search for your internal heart? What's the difference between your internal heart and your external heart? So the Alter Rebbe says, first of all, there's something which is called חיצוניות, the external heart. In here, the external heart. And then you have something which is called what? The panini. Now, what is the external heart? If it's a heart, what does a heart by definition mean? Heart means emotions, feelings. And let's use specifically, when you love God, is that coming from your head or from your heart? When you're in a relationship and you love someone, is that coming from your head or your heart? It's coming from your heart. Now, so the Alter Rebbe says, so the heart refers to love, emotions, etc. But let's use specifically one thing, so we're about to stay focused. It's referring to love. So you have love, which we call external love. Now it's pretty powerful, love. Love, even external love, is good, it's strong. In Hebrew, it's the fiery love. When you're on fire, you love something so much, and that's great, fire. But what is it coming from? We're talking in the world still of the חיצוניות, the external heart. What is the external fire of the heart, the love? That is built on. In other words, the question is, where does this love come from? You have this love. Where did it come from? So the Alter explains, חיצוניות comes from when a person uses his intellect, but which part of the intellect? Bina and das. What is Bina and das? Bina is when, we know Chachma is the idea, but Bina develops the idea. Bina is all the details. More details, right? So when a person thinks about something, let's use in our case God, when you use your Bina to think about God, wow, he did this, he did that, he created me, he maintains me, he causes the whole world. And like we do it in the prayer service, we read all the Psalms from King David. What does it speak about? It speaks about all the different details, the Bina, the development of the idea of how great God is, how awesome He is. Now, Bina gives you a lot of data, and that is very, very important. However, not enough yet. Because what happens if you have a lot of data? Okay, who's getting excited? But then you take that data and you use something which is called das. Das is where you start connecting the two dots. Das is like connecting the dots. Wow, God created the whole world and keeps on creating it, created me and gives me my every breath that I take, God gives me. Now when you have the data, but you also use your das, you apply yourself to it, you connect to it intellectually, what happens to your love? The love is soaring. The love is soaring. So the more the Bina, the data, the more the das, applying yourself to the idea of the greatness of God, that creates tremendous love for God. In other words, you can think about God's infinite power and so on and so forth. That will give you tremendous, beautiful love. Now, that love is real. And that love is real based on Bina, which is a lot of data, and based on das, which is applying yourself to with the data to God. Okay, but guess what? So think about that. If you're able to meditate on God, how great He is, and you're able to get the Bina part of it, you comprehended all the details, and you're able to apply yourself, and now you have love. That's fiery love. That's pretty strong. I mean, this is strong love. Yeah. But the Alter Rebbe says, guess what? You know what that's called? חיצוניות. The external heart. It's a level. It's a great level. Don't knock it. If you have it, wonderful. Keep it and build on it. But that is only called external love. Wow. So it gets better, obviously, right? So then the Alter says, guess what? But there's something which is called panini halev. Now, what is panini halev? So the Alter Rebbe says that it's basically the essence of your heart. It's the depth of your heart. Which the Alter Rebbe first says is, guess what? It's not חיצוניות halev. What does that mean? חיצוניות halev, the love that you have in your external heart, what is it built on? It's built on data and applying yourself. Now, because it's built on data and applying yourself, it's limited to the data that you have and how much you're able to apply yourself. Panini halev is way beyond how much data you have and how much you're able to apply yourself. Like the Alter Rebbe gives an example. Let's say something is really, really important to you. You can think about anything. Some people it's materialism, some people it's spirituality. It could be a child, it could be a good friend. Something that's really, really important to you. Really important to you. And you want to do something for that person. Is there a limit what you're going to do? No. Because if the person's really, really important to you, the sky's the limit. You'll do anything. If the person's really important to you from an internal level. If the person's important to you based on Bina and Das, חיצוניות halev, so you're going to go so far. And after that, you're going to stop. But if the person's really important to you, without any limits, guess what? There's not going to be any limits for how far you're going to go. Now, so what's the source? What's the source? Everything has to have a source from somewhere. It's an emotion. An emotion comes from somewhere. Where do you have this strong emotion that you're connected to this person, thing on such a deep level? Where does it come from? So the Alter Rebbe says that comes from the sphere of Chachma. The sphere of Chachma, but not only Chachma, the Alter Rebbe says, it comes from Chachma Alioina, a high level of Chachma. Why? Because what's the idea of Chachma? Chachma is not data and you're applying yourself. Chachma, the Alter Rebbe says that in Chachma, the Hashem, the light of God, is very, very dominant in the world of Chachma. In the sphere of Chachma, the light of God is very, very powerful. Now, when the light is on, when the light of Hashem is on, is that intellect or is that the light is on? You just see it. Because when the light is off, you have to use your mind, right? But when you see it, is there a limit to that?
No.
No. When you understand something, so it's based on your understanding. When you see it, when you physically see it, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, when you really get it and you see it, this is the right thing, guess what happens? Whoa, there's no limit to that. And that will allow you to have panini halev, which basically means will allow you to experience love without any limits.
No limits.
No limits. So that is what the idea of panini halev. Now, so when a person experiences panini halev, that connection is so deep, it really can never be severed. Why? Because if you're connecting to someone, a love relationship that's dependent on something, things change. And then the love will go away, will be diminished, or maybe get stronger. But if the love is not dependent on anything, it's dependent on just like, whoa, you're just plugged in to your depths of your heart, to the depths of the other person or God's heart, guess what happened? Wow, there's no limit to that love. And there's no reason why it should ever get severed, as long as you stay plugged in. So as long as you're able to open up your inner heart with, so to speak, another person's inner heart, in our case, obviously God, guess what? That relationship
Can never be severed.
Can never be severed. It's real, it's strong, and it's very, very powerful. Now, so the Alter asked now a very simple question. We all have the external heart, which is built on intellect, but we also have our internal heart. Nobody doesn't have an internal heart. We all have an internal heart, right? We all have an internal heart. So therefore, every one of us could and really should connect to God on the deepest level. We have it. So why aren't we using it? And look how happy you'll be. Could you imagine if you plugged into God your internal heart with God's internal heart? You wouldn't just be standing in shul, okay, what page? You'd be, hey, oh my gosh, we're with God, right? Let's pray, let's study, let's dance. I mean, like, it would be like beyond. Beyond anything you ever experienced. So since we all have panini halev, why aren't we using it? Why don't we see everyone with this wall-to-wall smile? Or yourself, right? You don't have to answer. Do you guys feel like you're accessing your panini halev? Got some honest answers here, thank you. Right? But the point is, why is that? Why not? Good question. And here the Alter Rebbe teaches us something very powerful. That we do have it, 100%. The problem is that this pnimi halev that we have is so beautiful and so delicate and so special that sometimes we have it. We always have it. But it's in exile. It's in exile.
Concealed.
It's in captivity. Now what happens is, when this essence of your heart gets covered up, it's in exile, captivity. Guess who's in exile?
God.
God's in exile. In Hebrew it's called galut hashchina. Because think about it. When your inner heart's on fire, and it's totally open and vulnerable, who are you plugged in with most? With God. But what happens when there's a shell that comes over this inner heart, and it goes into jail within you?
God is in exile.
God's in exile. So even though we would love to connect in that deepest level, guess what? God's in exile. Now, the question is, why is God in exile? Why? If I have that depth of my heart, where I can connect to God on the most deepest levels, why is it in exile? Why is it locked up? So the Alter Rebbe quotes from the Talmud that says, it says like this, I'll quote, I'll translate, and I'll explain. Galu lebavel, shchina imahem. What does that mean? Where's the Jewish people's place to live?
Israel.
Israel, very good. It's not even a question. We live in Israel. That's our place to live. Now, our place to live is in Israel. Now, so therefore, where do we belong? In Israel. Now, what is Israel spiritually? Israel comes from two words, Eretz Yisrael, which means it's a land, it's Eretz, the land, that of the Jewish people, and Eretz comes from the word of Ratzon, it's the land that wants to do the will of Hashem. It means when you go to Israel, why is everyone so excited? Because the land itself wants to do the will of Hashem. It wants to do another mitzvah. It wants to pray. It wants to study Torah. It wants to be happy. It's just like, it's in the ear. You go to the kotel, you're inspired. Why? Because it's there. The energy is strong. So what's outside of Israel? God is concealed. So Galul Bavel, we were exiled to Bavel. Guess what? You think God doesn't come with us? Sure, He comes with us. The Shekhinah is with us. But guess what? But the Shekhinah is in Galut. Why? Because Galul Bavel means not only physically we went to Bavel, but it means when we act like Bavel. What does that mean, we act like Bavel? It means that we act like Bavel that means instead of searching for God, and instead of developing and continuing and building our relationship with God, you know who we're building our relationship with? You want to spell it out? With Bavel. With materialism, with physicality, all these different physical pleasures, and so on and so forth. Right? Now, think about that. When you get excited about something physical, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, whether it's a boat, whether it's a plane, whether it's a cruise, whether it's a relationship, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but when you do, and you're doing it strictly for physical pleasures, if you're doing it for godly reasons, it's another whole story. But if you're doing it because, oh my gosh, this beautiful thing, and there's no godliness in that experience, so what are you opening up to that relationship? Whether it's, again, it's a person, whether it's a place or a thing, what are you opening up? Your external heart or your internal heart?
The external.
Really? You get excited about a bar of chocolate.
Oh.
It's external or internal?
Internal.
It's your internal heart. When you really get excited.
Well, I thought that's physical, and I thought it was supposed to be for God.
No, again, we're talking about Galul Bavel. Now, we're talking about now, the track we're talking about now, let's stay focused, we're talking about now, you're outside of Israel spiritually. That means you're engaging in the physical world. Now, you're engaging in the physical world. You're excited and you're passionate about the physical world. So what part of you is excited? Are you externally sitting there, or are you really enjoying it? You're enjoying it. You're into it.
Okay.
So what's into it? Your external heart or your internal heart? Your internal heart is into it. So what happens is your internal heart is mono. It's either here or there. You're either dancing with God or you're dancing with materialism, the devil, whatever you want to call it, however you want to describe, package it up. But if you're dancing, your inner heart is dancing with materialism pursuits, pleasure pursuits, again, that are not godly. That's why it's very, very important when you buy a house to make sure it's a Jewish house, you hang out the mezuzah, so you're not just a beautiful house. No, it's a house that we're going to pray in and study in and do mitzvot in. When you get married, you want to make sure you're married according to Jewish law. So the marriage becomes a holy pursuit, not just a physical enjoyment pursuit. Because you're literally taking your pniimiyut halev and you either can evolve it with God and make everything you're doing a godly experience, or unfortunately you're going to make it a physical and a selfish experience. And what you're going to do what happens when a person does that? So when a person goes ahead and gets involved in materialistic pursuits with his whole heart, with his essence of his heart, what happens? Your heart shuts down for godly stuff. For godly stuff. So now, what happens? So we have the problem. No, we have the problem. What's the problem? The problem is that we want to be inspired. We want to have a great relationship with God and godliness, Torah, mitzvot, everything right. But the problem is, why aren't we doing it? The answer is very simple. What does the Alter Rebbe say? Based on the Talmud, because our heart is somewhere else. And your heart can either be here or could be there. So if your heart is in good and godly things, that's where it's going to be. If the heart gets involved in unholy things, that's where it is. So what happens when we slip away? And we get involved in physical, materialistic, self-centered pursuits. Now we want to try to have a holy experience, not working. Because as we're trying to have the physical, holy experience, where's our heart? Somewhere else. So you might show up, you should still show up, but you might show up to prayer, or to Torah study, or to do a mitzvah, and you're there, but not excited. Yeah. What's the answer? Because you left your heart somewhere. Go pick it up.
Go get it.
It's like, they say the famous joke, they say that in France, there's a lot of godliness there. What in France? Everyone knows it's the place of the biggest, promiscuity, all the disaster there. Yes, because everyone leaves it there. Everyone leaves their godliness there, right? So you have to know where you're putting your heart. Are you putting it here? Or are you putting it here? That's what you got to do, right? Okay. Now, so the heart's in the wrong spot. We want to bring it back. But the problem is the heart's in exile. It comes along the Torah says, God says, Umaltem es orlas levavchem. What happened to your heart? It got like a big foreskin came around it. The heart got closed up because basically it's involved in materialism. So you have to go ahead and get a knife and you got to cut off all that stuff that's blocking it and then bring out the heart that it can be excited about godliness. Now, so that's on a physical. How do you do that? What knife do you use to cut off the shell that's blocking your heart from flowing and having a relationship with God? What knife do you use? Huh? Torah is true, yes. That's always good. Torah, God. Love is good, but the problem is your love is like somewhere else. Oh. We're trying to get the gook off the love that's stuck somewhere else. So how do you do that? So the Alter Rebbe says, you do it in generally speaking, something which is called tshuva. A person repents. A person says, "Oh my gosh, I want to exactly." You answered very right. Return. I want to return to Hashem. I want to become one with Hashem. Yes, I'm being honest. My heart I left somewhere else. I got to go pick it up. Get it out of the schmutz, right? Get it out of all the craziness that it's in. And God, oh my gosh, I want my heart only to get dedicated to you. Because you, bottom line, is you're the one that created me. You're the one that maintains me. You're the one I want my heart with. I only want my heart with you. Tshuva. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, what does that mean practically? So we know that when you do circumcision, when a male does a circumcision on a baby, so there's two-part process to the circumcision. There's something which is called circumcision. He cuts off the foreskin, the hard foreskin. He cuts. He uses a knife. And then there's something which is called priya. There's a membrane that you have to take off. And matter of fact, according to Jewish law, if the mohel, the circumciser, went and just cut off the foreskin and left the membrane skin on, guess what? He's still not circumcised. Oh. Why? Because it's still it's still covered up. Even though it's a thin foreskin, it's still membrane. No good. In other words, true, you got off the hard piece. Got it. Beautiful. But still not circumcised. You need both. Now the question is, spiritually, why do you need both? So the Alter Rebbe explains beautifully, and he says like this, that what happens is, when we get involved in the materialistic world, just for the sake of the materialism, again, because we don't believe you shouldn't be involved in the materialistic world. You should be involved for godly reasons. You should be married for holy reasons. You should have kids for holy reasons. You should have a nice house for holy reasons. You should go shopping for holy reasons. You're making Friday night, you're inviting guests, right? You should get a nice car, so you should be able to go ahead and drive to the minyan, go drive to your work, so you should earn a living, all for godly reasons. But what happens is when you're just doing it for materialistic reasons, for physical pleasure, so then what happens is, it goes into prison, it goes into exile. So when a person's involved in super gross and coarse pleasures, that creates a thick foreskin. But then there's some finer pleasures. Everyone has to decide what for them is considered a real coarse pleasure and what's considered a finer pleasure. But from the finer pleasure becomes the what? The membrane, which eventually needs priya. So what happens is, when a person does both types of pleasures, you need to circumcise the heart and take off the thick foreskin, and you also have to take off what? The finer one. Now, what's interesting is, the Alter Rebbe says like this, that on one hand, we have the power, God says, to do circumcision on our heart. What is that? Tshuva, as we mentioned before. But the tshuva that we have, the tshuva that we have only has the power to take off the thick foreskin. Half of the job. The one that has to do the other half, that comes from Hashem. That's a gift from Hashem. Hashem will come along and basically take away the finer blockage that's taking place. Now, that's Hashem's job to do. Our job to do is what? To basically do serious tshuva and realize, oh my gosh, we don't want our heart to be used for a cheap thrill. We want our heart to be connected to the infinite God, because God is our life. Would anybody be here without God? No, we wouldn't be here without God. So God put us here. God gives us everything we have. He gives us our eyes. He gives us our teeth. He gives us our hands. God gives us everything. Everything we have, we get from God. So since everything we have, we get from God, therefore, guess what, God? I want my inner heart to be with you, not with some kind of physical pleasure where it's enjoyable for 2 minutes, and 2 minutes later, there's no joy there. In other words, you want your inner heart, when you're excited about something, it shouldn't be about anything physical or anything that's short-lived. It should be about one thing and one thing only, and that is what? Your relationship with God. And if you put that in there, then when you're praying, it's going to be a real prayer. When you're studying Torah, it's going to be real study Torah. When you're doing a mitzvah, it's going to be real mitzvah on the highest levels. And interesting, the Alter Rebbe brings out and it says that what do we all want? We all want for the Mashiach to come, right? We're all waiting for the Messiah to come. So the Alter Rebbe says, guess what? When is the Messiah going to come? Talmud says, Ein ben David ba, ella behesach hadas. Which means he's going to come when you're not ready. That's the way it's translated. But the Alter Rebbe says deeper. When is the Mashiach going to come? Behesach hadas. What does das mean? What did we say before das brings? Das only opens up your external heart. When you're serving God with your external heart, you're only going to go so far. That's not going to bring Mashiach. You want the Messiah to come in your life. You want to have redemption. You want healing. You want miracles. You want messianic experiences. You got to get out of the das world. You got to go to open up your panini halev, which is connected to Chachma, and then the Mashiach will come and has a chance of coming. But as long as we remain in the level of das, it makes sense, it doesn't make sense, you're not having major miracles. You want major miracles, you want major blessings, you got to get out of the das. Now, so what did we say before? Our job is to do the circumcision. How do we do the circumcision? Tshuva. And that will take off the temptation from serious temptations into a yearning for God. Now, but what did we say before? Who takes off the finer temptations? God does that. God does that. So what does that mean? Until God doesn't take it off, we're not going to have it? So the Alter Rebbe says, guess what? We could experience that in this world. You know when? During prayer services. Whether it's chakras, the morning prayer, the evening, the afternoon prayer service, the evening. When a person prays, and when you pray, you meditate in prayer, and you think about what you're praying, and you realize, guess what? Guess what? Oh my gosh. I'm only here because of God. My whole life is thanks to God. That allows you to experience during prayer. This experience, you're totally, both shells come off. And guess what? Your inner heart comes out, and in prayer you can really experience that inner heart connection with God. That is, whoa. Can you imagine you're praying, and you're thinking about God. God created us, He maintains us, He gives us this whole beautiful world. And as the prayer, help us with that meditation. And then all of a sudden, you know what happens? The shell breaks off. Your inner heart, it's beyond logic, beyond Bina and Das. It's Chachma, beyond, and you see the light of Hashem. Whoa! Now you're experiencing real joy and real happiness on the highest level, and you're connecting to God. You're connecting to God on the deepest levels. Now, so that happens on prayer, through prayer. But ultimately, we want it not only to have a personal redemption during prayer, we want to have a great redemption. So the Alter Rebbe comes along and he shares with us a very important Kabbalistic idea, and that goes as follows. I'll say it in Hebrew and I'll translate it. There's something which is called Isarusa Delotata, and I'll translate, and there's something which is called Isarusa Delaila. What is the difference? They both have the same word, Isarusa, and one has Delotata, one has Delaila. What is the difference? Like this. Isarusa Delotata means an awakening from below, and Isarusa Delaila means an awakening from above. What does that mean? It means like this. Let's say you get up and you decide, you know what, I really want to have a relationship with God. I'm willing to meditate, I'm going to work on it, right? And you really work it out. That's called, you worked on it. That's called an awakening from below. You used your gifts that God gave you, intellect, emotions, God gave you all these beautiful gifts, and you came to a certain realization, you came to a certain clarity. And for example, tshuva. Tshuva is a surusal tata. It's something which I worked on. Oh my gosh, I don't want to live that type of empty life. I want to live a meaningful life. I want to live a happy life. That's something I came to. That's called isarusal tata. Then there's something which is called isarusal eila. It's an awakening from above. You weren't thinking about anything. All of a sudden, out of the blue, God just sent you this message. And you go, oh my gosh, God, thank you so much for taking me out of this craziness that I was in. You didn't meditate, you didn't think. God just totally blew you out. Now, obviously, what's more powerful or more meaningful when you work on yourself? What's greater when God gives it to you? It's much greater, it's huge. But now, God will give it to you whenever He's ready to give it to you. But comes along Kabbalah, and Kabbalah says, and the Alter Rebbe explains in this chapter, that when a person wants a gift from above, make the ground ready. In other words, for example, let's say you have a field. You have a field. Now, you want the field to grow. So you need the field, you need to work the ground, you put the seeds in, and then you pray that it rains, and guess what? We had a lot of rain today. And the rain comes out, and guess what? It starts growing. Now, what happens if you don't prepare the field? You don't plow the field, you don't put in seeds, and the rain comes. It's blessing. Guess what? What's growing?
Nothing.
Nothing. Why?
Because you didn't plant?
The answer is because you didn't plant. No, so what does that mean practically? When it's not going to grow without God. It means if it doesn't rain, in either case you have nothing. But when it does rain, the only time the rain will produce if you prepare. So when a person prepares, then you're ready to receive the greatest blessing. So the Alter Rebbe says, if you want God to come along and totally open up your heart, take off the last piece, after you do tshuva, a person has to do isarus l'tatam, which means you have to do your part. Now, what practically could you do to get the field ready? So the Alter Rebbe says that when a person gives charity, that creates that creates an opening from below that will inspire God to give you a huge blessing. And when He gives it to you, it's actually going to click. It's going to work. Why is that? The Alter Rebbe says very, very simple. Because when a person works hard and he earns money, so two things happen here. Number one is, when you work hard and you earn money, pick any number, you earned $100. More or less, the dollar amount's not important for right now. So you can go to the store and you can buy food. And the food, you can nourish yourself. So bottom line is, the money that you have has the power to give you life sustenance. Why? Because you can buy food and you need food to live. But instead of taking this money and going to the store and buying something for yourself, you go and you give it to charity. Whether it's to the synagogue, to a school, to whatever, it's a poor person, you give the charity to someone else. So you basically took something which was your life force, and you gave it away to somebody else. Why did you give it to someone else? Because the Torah tells us to be kind to other people and to help other people out. So you took money that you could have used for your life force, and you did what God wants. Wow. God says, this guy really went on self-sacrifice. He could have used it for himself, and he gave it away. Let's send down some rain to this guy, right, to this person. Or, the Alter Rebbe says even a step further. Usually when people work, you just show up to work half asleep. Not going to last too long at work, right? Whether if you're an employee or if it's your own business, you're not going to succeed. When you show up at work, guess what? You want to be an honest worker. You show up, you get into it, you're excited, you put a lot of energy into it. So who's working? Your body or your whole soul is working? Your whole soul is working. Now, so you put your whole soul into the work, and at the end of the week, the day, however you get paid, or at the end of a deal, you get a nice check. Now, this check is resembling, this check, cash, however you get paid, is resembling what? Your work. And your work is what? External work, or it's real work? You put your soul into it. So when this money is your life, you put your life to earn this money. Some people actually do things that literally put their life on the line. Let's say a roofer, or guys that washes big skyscrapers. I mean, literally putting his life on the line. And unfortunately, people do unfortunately fall and at times even hurt themselves and die. So you're talking about people that literally put their life on the line for certain jobs. But even if it's a simple job, you put your heart into it. Now, so this money resembles your life. You put your hard work into it. So you want to hold on to it. You want to hold on to it, use it for things that are important, for yourself, your family, etc. I mean, this is like serious stuff here. It resembles your hard work. But then you say, no. Someone needs help, I'm going to give. What are you giving? You're giving $1? Whatever the dollar, you're giving 100? No, you're giving your hard work. You're giving your soul that you put into it. So that, the Alter Rebbe says, when your person does that, you're actually creating the the awakening from below that will cause God to give you what? Tremendous blessing. Now,
making the ground ready.
And interesting is, the Alter Rebbe says, there's an expression that says when a person goes ahead and gives charity, so what are you doing? So you're creating an awakening from below, that God comes along and gives you a gift. What's the gift? What do we say that God gives you? The gift God gives you is that He takes off the membrane, right? Because it's called para in Hebrew. You take off the membrane, right? Or the skin that's covering over, not the thick one, the thinner one. So the Alter Rebbe said, it's interesting is the same word for the priya, which is the taking off the membrane, is also comes from the word piroin, like to pay back a debt. Because think about it. Because your heart belongs with God or in a materialistic pursuit. Where's its natural state?
God.
With God. It slipped away into pursuit of something physical, materialistic. But when you're going ahead and you're giving charity, you're causing God to peel off the shell that brings back the heart to the right spot. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says, brings back full circle to the beginning of the chapter. What does it say? ושביה, God will redeem us. Who's He redeeming? Not just redeeming us physically if we're in exile, but he's redeeming the inner heart of ours. The inner heart of ours that never got lost in materialistic physical pursuits. I'm not even talking about sin. That's for sure, it's a major redemption. Even if you just engage in just materialistic pursuits, so God comes along, ושביה, redeems your inner heart. How? בצדקה. When you give tzedakah, when you give charity, it brings your heart into the right spot. So based on this, the author explains that he brought out initially the verse that says, tzedek לפניו יהלך. So the question was, why didn't it say יהלך? It said יהלך, it's going. So why does he use the term יהלך? Because tzedek לפניו, when a person does tzedakah, לפניו, it takes you to your inner soul, יהלך, back to God's inner soul. So it's not יהלך, it's actually יהלך, it's bringing it back full circle to what? The inner soul. And
frees the heart.
And based on this, the author explains another famous verse from Psalms, which there's actually a song for it, where it says, Pada b'shalom nafshi, that God redeemed my soul in peace. Now, shalom means peace, but charity goes also in the same category of peace. Because think about it, when you give charity, you're making peace between two people. So the Alter Rebbe says, Pada b'shalom means that when a person goes ahead and he gives charity, you're actually redeeming through the charity, nafshi, your nefesh, your soul, which means your inner soul of your heart, you're redeeming it. So you see again how by when a person goes ahead and gives tzedakah, when a person gives shalom, peace, you're actually redeeming your soul from captivity. Now the Alter Rebbe finishes off very, very powerful, and he says, obviously, since the goal is to try to redeem your soul, so you want to do it by how? By giving charity. So the Alter Rebbe says, guess what? What's the best charity you can do? The best charity a person can give is giving money in Israel. In Israel, to Israel, for Israel. Why is that? Because we know that it says that in Israel, in Eretz Israel, the Torah tells us, Tamid Eini Hashem L'Kachaba, God is there from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. God is always in Israel. So if you're giving charity in Israel, guess what? God's there. It's like a local call. From here, it's a long distance call. God is right there. It's a local call. God already gets the charity. God, this guy, it's great. I'm going to go ahead and save him, right? Or for example, it says another verse. It says, "V'hayu einai v'libi sham kol yom." God says, "My eyes and my heart are there a whole year." And not only that, we all know the fact is that Israel's a place that they always try to destroy us. They always want, and that is the only place that we have that we can call home. Obviously, we're really going to have it home when the Messiah comes, but this is our home, and it allows. And not only, but Eretz Yisrael is a place that we can live our life fully, where Hashem's blessing is all over us. So therefore, it's important to give tzedakah so that we can redeem our pnimis slave that's been unfortunately taken out in captivity. So as you can tell, this chapter is a beautiful chapter. It's really beautiful because it really lays out a path how we can have an amazing relationship with Hashem, with God. And you can apply it to other relationships too. And that is by what? Not just connecting to God intellectually, Bina and Das, which only take you to חיצוניות, but connecting to God with your inner heart, your pnimis, which comes from Chachma, which comes from the Hashem. And when a person opens up your pnimis, whoa! That's like over the top. That's like infinite connection. Now, unfortunately, Alter Rebbe said that sometimes when we use that passion, the inner heart, for materialism, so guess what? You get blocked up and it's not sensitive and doesn't have its connection with godly things. So the way to overcome that is by the circumcision, which basically is doing tshuva. Now we do tshuva on many levels, but basically we can experience that in prayer when we daven. We can really reconnect once to Hashem. But more important, if we want to basically knock out the shell, and we want God to help us take off the finer part, the best way to do that, the Alter Rebbe says, is what? By giving charity. When you give charity, it wakens up Hashem and says, "Oh my gosh, let me go help this guy." He peels it off, and you're able to connect to God on the beautiful and most deepest levels. So let's hope and pray that we really take this chapter to heart, and all our hearts are opened, and we have the greatest and most powerful relationships with Hashem.